Kinnock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate the member for Oldham East and Saddleworth and the member for Stretford and Urmston for securing this important debate. On a daily basis, my office sees firsthand the horrendous and appalling impact the government's changes to the social security system have had on some of the most vulnerable people in my Aberavon constituency. Many of my constituents who come to my advice surgeries are usually at their wits' end, worried that their benefits are going to be stopped and that they won't be able to pay their rent or put food on the table for their children. We've seen hundreds of vulnerable constituents put through the humiliation of shambolic health assessments which cast doubt on their physical disabilities or mental health issues. And following that humiliation is the awful uncertainty and fear of the appeals process, which we almost always win. Some people have been awarded no points following PIP or ESA assessments, when quite clearly they are struggling with a disability or information has been inaccurately recorded. This has eroded confidence, not only in the assessment process, but in the whole system. And universal credit has landed people in rent arrears for the very first time. Some of their experiences are simply harrowing. In one case, a woman suffering with a degenerative disc condition for 27 years, along with depression and anxiety, waited over a year for her ESA assessment, only to have it cancelled on the day. A month later she was assessed, but the anxiety and stress of the wait, followed by the degrading assessment itself, led to a mini stroke 2 days after the assessment. She now has high blood pressure, which puts her at risk of a further stroke. Despite all that, she was put onto the work-related category. That decision was overturned following a mandatory reconsideration. And she's not alone in having to go through this process. 75% of PIP decisions and 74% of ESA decisions were overturned on appeal in Wales in 2017. This high rate is symptomatic of the fundamental flaws in the initial assessment process. If the correct decisions were made from the outset, then a lot of the misery, worry and suffering would be avoided. When you raise these problems with government, you get the same response time after time, that the government don't recognise these big problems and will carry on regardless. It's like an ostrich with its head buried in the sand. But that is indicative of the government's track record. Carry on until you are shamed into doing something about it. But what can be more shaming than when a United Nations poverty envoy says that changes to social security have meant that great misery has also been inflicted unnecessarily, especially on working poor, on single mothers struggling against mighty odds, on people with disabilities who are already marginalised, and on millions of children who are being locked into a cycle of poverty, is what was published in the report. It is appalling and inexcusable that this is happening in a G7 country. Our social security system is there as a safety net for the most vulnerable. Right now that safety net is failing. MPs, the Equality and Human Rights Commission and the United Nations have all called on the government to conduct a cumulative impact assessment. If the government is so confident that they're doing the right thing, then they have nothing to fear over commissioning this assessment. But ultimately, the government must stop burying its head in the sand over this and wake up to the reality that their punitive and callous policies are causing misery and hardship to hundreds of my constituents and hundreds of thousands of people around this country. Thank you, Madam Deputy.